Greetings, Warshippers. SeaRaptor here, bringing you the first of a new series that I have dubbed Builder's Trials. The first look videos I publish are meant to cover off ships that have not yet entered the live client and are only available for us to look at and port on the public test server. These Builder's Trials videos will highlight actual gameplay of ships that are made available to CCs in the live client, but have not yet been deemed final. So, essentially, these videos should come out right after a patch hits and we get new ships to play with. This one is a little slow because, well, it's the holidays. The first ship we're going to look at in this series is Tier VIII Premium Pan-Asian Cruiser, Irian. Irian is a Soviet-era cruiser, Project 68 BIS, what Western navies referred to as the Sverdlov class, originally named Orzonikidze, that was laid down in Leningrad on 19 October 1949. Launched in September 1950, she was commissioned into the service of the Sovietsky Voyenomorskoy Flot and joined the Red Banner Baltic Fleet in the summer of 1952. She served with distinction for nearly a decade in the Baltic, ferrying the likes of Nikita Khrushchev to the United Kingdom in 1956 for the first state visit by a Soviet leader to a Western power since the end of the Second World War. Incidentally, while docked in Portsmouth Harbor during this particular visit, Orzonikidze became embroiled in an international incident when an Mi-6 Frogman was spotted by her crew attempting to inspect the propeller of the ship. In late 1960, she was transferred to Sevastopol in the Black Sea Fleet. She was scheduled to undergo refit during 1961 in order to adapt her machinery and propulsion for warmer water temperatures and higher humidity. However, these upgrades never occurred due to the costs involved, and she was officially transferred to Indonesia in July 1962, where she was rechristened KRI Irian. Now, Irian served less than a decade with her new navy and was continually plagued by maintenance issues. Following the September 1965 coup d'etat that saw Indonesia sever its ties with the Soviet Union, Irian never left dock in Surabaya again. She was occasionally used as a political prison for opponents of the anti-communist regime, but in 1972 she was sold for scrap and towed to the breakers in Taiwan. As a sister ship of Tier VIII premium Russian cruiser Mikhail Kutuzov, Irian is largely a clone of that ship. But in order to frame the discussion about Irian properly, I have to make sure that everybody understands the long and sordid history of Mikhail Kutuzov in World of Warships. Kutuzov first went on sale in late 2015, and eventually made her way onto the list of ships that Wargaming deemed too powerful to ever sell again. I purchased my Kutuzov in mid-April of 2016, so she was available for quite a while before she was pulled from the shop. Once she was removed from sale, though, Kutuzov has only ever been available again via loot containers like super containers and Christmas crates. So, why is she considered so overpowered? What is the deal with this ship? Well, for starters, she was the first widely available cruiser that came with the smoke generator consumable. The very first smoke cruiser in the game was a Walkie Alpha, but she was only given to alpha testers and remains a pretty rare ship even today. Remember that Kutuzov was released before the British cruiser line. She was a ship and the battleship players of the era did not take particularly well to. An HE spamming machine that they couldn't see and, many believed, fight back against effectively. Of course, the game has evolved quite a bit since then. These days, battleship players will regularly take potshots at, and hit, cruisers firing from smoke cover. But when Kutuzov was initially released, that was not a skill that many of the players had. Kutuzov's 19.1 kilometer firing range remains the longest main battery range of any Tier VIII cruiser. Indeed, she has the most range of any ship in the game whose primary armament consists of 150 to 155 millimeter guns. Additionally, her AA was, and remains, excellent for her tier, and she has access to the defensive AA fire consumable. So, the natural enemy of the smoke camping ship, the aircraft carrier, was rendered largely ineffective when dealing with Kutuzov. All of these things combined made her a very unpleasant ship to play against. You also have to remember that Kutuzov was a light cruiser at high tier in an era where only 155 Mogami really fit that description, and Wargaming had been nerfing 155 Mogami into the ground for months, starting with the initial live release of the game in September of 2015. The final nail in Mogami's coffin didn't really come until update 0.5.3, about 6 weeks after Kutuzov hit the premium shop. The Commander Skills Expert Marksman, Basic Firing Training, and Advanced Firing Training were all modified so they no longer worked with guns of 139mm caliber or higher. The very same patch saw Kutuzov receive 3 massive buffs. Her rate of fire increased from 6.75 to 7.5 rounds per minute, her range increased from 15.9 kilometers to 19.1 kilometers, and her turret traverse speed was buffed from 5.4 to 7.2 degrees per second. Each of these buffs directly counteracted the nerfs to the corresponding commander skills that had made 155 Mogami such a monster, with update 0.5.3 effectively gut-punching the Japanese cruiser into oblivion and leaving Kutuzov untouched. Unsurprisingly, people who had loved playing 155 Mogami began flocking to Kutuzov in droves, and while not as bad as the Turpocalypse of autumn 2015, there was a noticeable uptick in players taking her into battle. Full disclosure, I was one of these players myself. Eventually, the grumbling about her got loud enough that Wargaming took notice and pulled her off the shelf, I think realizing they had gone a little too far in buffing the ship. So, Raptor, why on earth is Wargaming cloning a ship that's considered so overpowered they won't sell her again? Well, the short answer is, they've removed, changed, or toned down just about everything that made her really busted. And Irian is a hell of a lot of fun to play. The first thing that players are likely to notice when they look at Irian is that they're losing nearly 2 kilometers of main battery range from her sister ship. Irian's range tops out at 17.5 kilometers, compared to Kutuzov's 19.1. For Tier 8, though, 17.5 kilometers is pretty respectable, especially for 152mm guns. The only other ship with guns of this size at Tier 8 that comes even close to this range is, unsurprisingly, Tech Tree Russian cruiser Chapayev. Other ships with this kind of range at Tier 8 all pack 203mm barrels, and other 152mm armed ships at this tier tend to cap out in the 15 to 16 kilometer range. So while Irian's range is less than that of Kutuzov, she's far from gimped in this particular regard. Another thing that stands out is Irian's rudder shift speed, nearly 4 seconds slower than Kutuzov. Her 760-meter turning circle is identical, so she handles almost exactly the same, she simply responds to rudder commands more slowly. This gives ships with heavier guns a bit more of an opportunity to punish her when she makes positional errors. Additionally, Irian is a bit stealthier than Kutuzov, coming in at a surface detection of 10.5 kilometers when fully rigged for stealth, and she has a few hundred more hit points. Astute observers will also note that while Irian's AA suite is identical to that of Kutuzov, she does not have access to the defensive AA fire consumable. The final big change is in her torpedo armament. Kutuzov packs 1 quintuple launcher on each side of the ship with 8-kilometer Russian torpedoes. Irian retains the quintuple launchers, but her torpedoes are Pan-Asian Mark 17s, identical to those found on Yu Yang, deep-water torpedoes with a range of 13.5 kilometers. This kind of torpedo range out of a cruiser is nearly unheard of, and gives Irian a lot of tactical flexibility. Additionally, she gains access to the torpedo reload booster consumable, another oddity for a cruiser, but one that gives her some serious long-range punch when she wants it. So, how do you play this ship? Well, in my experience, Irian really excels when she's played as a mid-range support cruiser. Her detection and deep-water torpedoes give her the ability to play about 5 to 7 kilometers behind friendly destroyers, keep her main battery in the game, and employ that torpedo armament against enemy capital ships without having to fear the torpedoes interfering with allied destroyers that are out front spotting for her. Only being able to allow to equip hydroacoustic search in her second consumable slot sounds like a bit of a drawback at first, but it's really a true asset to the ship, because it allows her to ferret out destroyers camped in smoke when she really needs to. Like the ships of the Japanese cruiser line, she's also exceptionally good at kiting enemies with her ability to set fires and fire long-range torpedoes. Farming fire and flood damage off of battleships is not overly challenging with Irian. She may not bag a lot of kills doing this, but she's going to rack up a lot of Witherer and Arsonist achievements, and the damage will pay off in credits and experience. Players who want to division their Irian up with a friendly destroyer should note that her detection while firing in smoke is 7.0 kilometers, 10% lower than Kutuzov, but still higher than American Tier 8 light cruiser Cleveland. Irian's muzzle velocity and shell arcs discourage her from pitching a tent near an island the way, say, a Cleveland or an Atlanta would. She plays a little more like Chapayev in that sense, but the lack of radar means that she's more reliant on her allies. I honestly believe that Irian will be strongest when divisioned up with a destroyer who can spot for her and time the torpedo salvos on a single enemy to rack up the hits and flooding damage. Barring that, she will prefer to work the open water where her narrow profile and solid handling will make her a tough target to get off the board for a single opponent. Just like every other cruiser in the game, though, she folds pretty quickly when under focus fire from multiple enemies.
The ship is on fire!
We don't yet know if this is Irian's final form, or if the development team in St. Petersburg has other changes planned for her. For my part, I say, sell her just like she is. She doesn't need anything. She offers players who don't own the other Project 68 BIS cruiser in the game the opportunity to pick one up, and the playstyle of each ship is so radically different from the other that it's hardly the same ship. When playing solo, she's excellent at farming damage off of opposing battleships, especially when her captain has the IFHE skill. In a division with a friendly destroyer, she has the ability to work closer to cap circles and punish enemy destroyers her team spots for her, while not having to restrict her own torpedo usage for fear of hitting those very same DDs that are out in front. She's not the plane-murdering beast that Kutuzov is, but her anti-aircraft suite is solid enough that she can contribute to the AA defense of her team. Given her Pan-Asian origins, I expect we might see her coming to the premium shop in late January or early February as we get closer to Chinese New Year. That's a guess, though. Wargaming's made no official announcements. It seems logical. Thanks for watching, everybody. Stay tuned this week for more info on the myriad of Christmas giveaways we're going to be running on the channel here and elsewhere. And don't forget that update 0.7.12 is right around the corner. We will talk to you again very soon.